Hello guys, this is Mohsin Azam interacting with you from my YouTube channel. Today we are going to start the second lesson of our Planning Engineer and Primavera tutorials. The topic which we will discuss today is condition of contract. So first of all we will discuss contract. Contract is an agreement between two parties creating mutual obligation enforced by law. What is mutual obligation? Mutual obligation is an act or course of action to which a person is morally and legally bound. So contract is actually an agreement between two parties which will be enforced by law. Mutual obligation, as we read here, that this is basically an agreement between two persons or two stakeholders on which they are morally and legally bound. These can be breaching the contract can be challenged in the courts. Benefit of contract: by doing the contract agreement between two parties, it will give us some clarity in the business relation, agreement and right of parties. So there will be very much clarity in the business relation between the two parties, and each party will be fully aware of their rights, and it will avoid the potential disputes and litigation, preventing the misinterpretation of communication and agreement. So no one can misinterpret the communication and the agreement. Condition of contract will specify that how either parties can end the contract before work is completed. Somehow, if any of the party or stakeholder want to breach the contract, what will be the procedure? Next is general condition of contract. General condition of contract is a part of all public bid documents and no one can amend them. If you want to do the business with the public sector, you often have to agree to them. So general condition of contract is actually an agreement which we have to do with any public sector authority, and the amendment in the terms is not possible. And if you want to work or take any business or project from the authority or from the public sector, you should have to agree all the terms and conditions of the contract. Here we will give all the references from the FIDIC Red Book named as Condition of Contract for the Construction. So here the general condition of for the general condition of contract, we will use or we will give or we will refer all the terms or the clauses of the FIDIC Red Book 1999. Particular condition of contract. Particular condition of contract is basically some specific clauses which will be specific to the current project for which we are going to sign an agreement with the client. Some basic definition here we will discuss. First of all, here contract. So what is the actual definition of the contract? In the condition of contracts is the contract agreement. So contract is actually the contract agreement or the letter of acceptance. What is letter of acceptance? The letter of acceptance is the letter of formal acceptance signed by the employee. So this is actually the letter which the contractor will receive from the employee by accepting the offer which the contractor submit in the tender. So after submitting the tender, the client will give us the letter of acceptance if they agree with the quotation and the duration which we submit to them, and the project will be considered as awarded to the contractor. Letter of tender. Letter of tender is the document which was completed by the contractor and includes the signed offer to the employee for the work. So after bidding, the contractor will prepare all the documents and will submit all the documents to the client with the final offer or the quotation for the work or for the project. Tender. Tender is actually the letter of tender and all the documents which the contractor submit is included in the contract. So the term tender means the letter of the tender. Letter of tender, as we discussed, is actually the documents and the final quotation which we submit to the employee for the project. Commencement date, the date on which the contractor can formally commence the project as per the condition of contract 8.1. This 8.1 is actually the reference from the FIDIC Red Book 1999, and the clause 8.1 is actually the commencement of work. So as per the general condition of contract 8.1 clause, the commencement date is actually the date from which the project from which the contractor can contractually start the project. Time for the completion, the time for the completing the work means the duration of the project. So the time for completion means the total duration of the project. Test on completion, all the tests which are specified in the contract upon the completion of the work. So all the tests which are specified in the contract upon the completion of the project will be named as test on completion. Taking over certificate, upon the completion of work or the section, the engineer will issue a certificate to the contractor as per the contract condition 10, employee taking over. So taking over is actually the certificate which the engineer will issue after inspecting the site. And if they found that the work is completed, they will issue a certificate to the contractor. Defect notice period, defect as it's written here, defect notice period. So defect is actually after completing the project and taking the taking over certificate from the engineer, the defect liability period will start. It is actually, and in most of the cases, the duration for the defect liability or notice period is 1 year. So any defect in this duration will be upon the contractor. So all the remedial action will be fully responsibility of the contractor. So defect notice period is actually a notice period, or it's a duration specified in the contract in which all the defects or the remedy of the defects will be upon the contractor. Performance certificate, the certificate after defect notice period under subclass 11.9. Performance certificate is actually a certificate after the defect notice period. So once we complete the project, we will request the engineer to give us the taking over certificate, and after taking over certificate, our defect notice period will start. And after completing the defect notice period, we will request or the employee to provide us the performance certificate. Accepted contract amount, as it's clear from the sentence, accepted contract amount is actually the amount in the letter of acceptance. So after as we discussed before, that the letter of acceptance we will get from the employer after submitting the tender. If they accept our offer, they will give us the letter of acceptance, and there they will mention the clear amount for which they award the project to the contractor. So the amount in the letter of acceptance for the execution and completion of the work. So this is the total amount which both the parties, the client and the contractor, agree to work to execute the project and complete the project. It's not only execute, but you have to complete it. You have to do all the formal and the contractual closure of the project and the remedy of any defect. So it include all the remedy or any defects in the liability period. So the total amount will be for the execution of the project and the testing and the completion of the project. And after this, if we have any defects, the remedy is also including in the accepted contract amount. Final payment certificate. Final payment certificate after performance certificate. Performance certificate was the after defect liability period, we will request the client to give us the performance certificate. After performance certificate, the contractor shall submit the final statement. Final statement will consist of all the interim payment. As we all know that in any project after the commencement, the contractor should have to submit the interim payment. Interim payment is actually the monthly payment for the executed work. So the contractor will submit monthly payments, and at the end, contractor shall submit the final statement. The final statement should include all the interim payment and discharge. The payment certificate will issue under subclass 14.13, issue of final certificate. So final payment certificate should be issued after the performance certificate. So once the contractor get the final performance certificate, and he should have to submit the final payment certificate, which consists of final statement of the project. Provisional sum, a sum which is specified in the contract as a provisional sum. What is actually the provisional sum? Whole or part of the provisional sum can only be used as engineer instructed, and the contract price will be adjusted accordingly. For the execution of any part of work, or for the supply of plant, material or service under subclass 13.5 provisional sum. Provisional sum is actually the amount which the employee will keep in the contract in case of any emergency or any variation or any part of the work which was not contractually agreed. This is any variation or any type of material change which is actually cost higher than the actual rate of the material. So can these all things, any overhead charges can be adjusted from the provisional sum. So provisional sum is actually an amount which the client will keep in the contract in case of any emergency or any overhead charges. These provisional sum can be used, but as it's written here, it can only be used as the engineer instructed. So it can be used upon the engineer instructed, and the contract price will be adjusted accordingly. So this cannot be used in the project, but the only case is if the engineer agree, then the provisional sum or the part of the provisional sum can be utilized in the project. Retention money, the money which the employee retain under subclass 14.3, application for the interim payment certificate and pays under. So this retention money is actually the money which the client will retain in the part of in all the payments of the project. It's usually 5% or 10%, depend on the condition of contract. So these are the money which the employee will retain and will pay us under the payment of retention money. So these are the money the client will retain and will pay us after the defect liability period, which is usually 10% of the contract agreement. Force majeure. In business circle, force majeure describe those uncontrollable events. These force majeure are basically the uncontrollable events such as war, which is not in the control, or labor stoppages or labor strikes, and external weather condition. These are all the force majeures. They are not the fault of any party. This is not the fault of any party, either the contractor or the engineer, and they make it difficult or impossible to carry out the normal business. So these unforeseeable events, which is not the fault of any party, but it will create the difficulty to carry the normal business or to complete the project. It is defined in the clause 19. The force majeure is actually defined in the clause 19 of the condition of the contract. Performance security. Performance security is actually a performance security bond. This is a bond, also known as contract bond. We can say this as a contract bond also. Is a surety bond, or we can say also is a surety bond issued by an insurance company or bank to guarantee the satisfactory completion of the project by the contractor. This is actually the bond which on the behalf of the contractor, a bank or the insurance company will issue to the client for the satisfactory completion of the project. It is a security of the contract actually. So the validity of the bond will be the duration of the project. Site, the place where the permanent work are to be executed. Site is actually the location where the permanent works to be executed. Unforeseeable, no reasonably foreseeable by an experienced contractor by the date of submission of the tender. Unforeseeable is actually some hidden things which was not experienced by the experienced contractor upon the submission of contract. So anything which was not bring under the calculation in the contract by an experienced contractor will be called as unforeseeable. Variation, any change to the work. Variation is actually the change in the existing scope of work. Thanks for watching. The next topic will be important contractual clauses for condition of contract, from condition of contract. So in the next lesson we will discuss some important clauses which is important for the planning engineer. So that's it for today. If you like the video, please subscribe my YouTube channel Business Innovation and follow my Facebook page. Thanks for watching.